It's time for a good old-fashioned Q&A, MMA fans. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived to hear from the man himself, Ariel Helwani. Live from the Box Studios in beautiful New York City, it's On the Nose. And now, to answer your questions, get out of your seats and on your feet.
Get out of your seats, baby!
Ariel Helwani.
Thank you very much to Mike Heck for that tremendous theme music. ArielHelwani.substack.com. That's where you can get the questions. And without further ado, let's hit them questions. Daddy-o. All right, here we go. Alex Weber up first. And, oh, this is great. Bing bong. Yes, that's right. Knicks till we die, orange and blue. He loves to do the On This Day Twitter questions. On this day, November 3rd, 2011, Ariel Helwani via Twitter wrote as follows. If you're an MMA fan in New York and or just a fan of the sport in general, this article is sure to make you sick. And I linked to an article on upholding the ban of MMA in New York. 10 years later, we are 3 days out from the 5th UFC event at Madison Square Garden. How monumental for the sport was getting legalized in New York. It was massive. It was huge. It felt like a stain on the sport that they were not legal in the great state of New York. We all know that it was politics, that it was the Culinary Union of all people, and it was Sheldon Silver, the former assembly speaker, who was stopping the UFC and the sport of MMA from getting legalized here. And so it was massive. What do you see happening in the next 10 years to further the growth of the sport? Entering Africa, other promotions gaining market share, bigger network TV deals. Yes to the last one. Streaming is going to be huge, obviously. But again, too much of a good thing isn't a good thing. We have to be careful about oversaturation. Africa will be gigantic. Of course, the world has taken a bit of a left turn here with COVID. And so I'm sure that has halted some of the expansion plans. Even a couple of days ago, Dana White saying he wasn't sure if they were ready to leave the Apex for the fight nights, which is not music to my ears, if I'm being honest. But, they got to do what they got to do. And they're saving and making an incredible amount of money by doing the shows over there. We hope that the fighters get a bigger piece of the pie. We hope that there are things like revenue sharing and collective bargaining and sponsorships and TV revenue sharing and all this stuff. Free agency. We hope that all of these things are more apparent in the next 10 years. And I think that's no knock on anyone right now, but the more options, the better for the fighters. If you are a supporter of the fighters, that's what you want. So these are things to look out for. El Cubano, my guy. Hola, Ariel. Agree or disagree on the future of the strawweight division after Saturday? If Rose wins, Namajunas Esparza 2, Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 2. Love it. Agree with it. Love it. If Zhang Weili wins, Zhang Weili versus Rose Namajunas 3. Interesting. Carla Esparza versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 2. Interesting. Now, Marina Rodriguez figures to be a part of this, but yeah, I could see that. I mean, it all depends on the situation with Joanna as well. Is she gonna want to be, not fighting for a title? She said she would fight someone like Esparza, rematch with Weili. But yeah, I could see both of those. And he also adds Viva Helwani. Okay, here's Gomi is the GOAT, who seems a little salty. Since you skipped my question 3 weeks in a row, I've decided to ask first. Okay, well, technically you weren't first, but nevertheless, while Rose didn't intend to turn fans against Zhang with those comments, it's quite easy to see that it doesn't take much to persuade American fans. I find it unfair for Zhang to take the heat from Rose and Joanna regarding the better dead than red comment and the altered poster of Joanna wearing the gas mask. Every comment section from FB/Sherdog is blaming Zhang over nothing she has no control over. I agree. It's bullshit. It is. It's hogwash. She had nothing to do with this. And look, if you're booing Zhang because you're a fan of Rose, that's fine. That's fair game. If you're booing her because you're some sort of it's like your commentary on the current state of politics, or you think she's this or that, a little bit silly. But look, you're allowed to go to an event and cheer for your favorites and boo the ones that are fighting your favorites. That's all well. But let's not cross the line and make this, too personal or make this too political. Should the UFC start offering professional media training to up-and-coming fighters to improve their communication skills for when they hit the main stage? Please no. Absolutely not. Look at this man who is here today, Ian Gary. Did he get professional training? They used to do this, by the way. It was several years ago. They would have these sort of gatherings. I don't know what they call them fighter summits. And we don't want the fighters to become like hockey players, to become like NFL players, NBA players, and they just regurgitate the same stuff, the same cliches. We don't want that. We absolutely don't want that. We want them to be raw. We want them to be honest. We want them to be authentic. We want them to keep it real. We don't want any of that. Now, of course, they can have people guiding them, this and that, but like, nah, I don't want that. Hell no. How do you think Canelo versus Plant goes this weekend? Of course, very excited about that. Showtime pay-per-view here in America, BT Sport box office over in the UK. What a night, November 6th. What a night. I mean, Saul Canelo Alvarez going up against Caleb Plant is a big-time fight. Remember the press conference? Bang, bang. Hit him with the 1-2. Ultimately, I think Canelo wins. Who is next for Paul Craig? Was he supposed to be fighting Gus next but fell through? Yeah, I think he's got someone coming up very soon. I mean, you could Google this as well. Top of mind, Paul Craig. I thought he had someone. Yes, he was supposed to fight Gustafsson. Maybe he doesn't have someone. I don't know. I'll have to check. Who do you see potentially leaving Bellator first? AJ McKee or Michael Venom Page? Tough one. If I had to pick one, I'll say MVP. Would you be interested in a Volkanovski versus Jan fight at 145? No, I want to see the 45ers fight the 45ers. Jan's too new in his journey as a 35er in the UFC, and Volkanovski too. There's still fights. I don't want to see these super fight stuff that, like, look, we could have had Glover versus Jan back in March, and Yuri would have fought. And now there's like a log jam, right, with Yuri and with Rakic and all this stuff. Unless it's a really special circumstance, I like the champs fighting the top contenders. Ariel, my man, your Adelaide Crows jersey is on the way. Let's go. They reached out to me. By the way, the Adelaide Crows official Instagram feed reached out to me, and they said, we heard that you can be bought. We heard that you are interested in being a fan of ours. We want Thug Nose on our team. We want Helwani on our side. We do not want to catch any strays. And so, yes, I said, of course, I can be bought, and I will be bought. So it's in the works. Hey, Ariel, thank you for introducing me to Euro MMA journalists like Pete Carroll. As an Aussie, could you recommend any good Australian journalists? Been struggling to find local coverage. Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot here. Submission Radio, those guys are great. Australian, there's a bunch of guys who do stuff. Someone help me out. Can someone help me out? There's a bunch of guys that always tag me, and I feel like adult. The Submission Radio guys for sure. If anyone could write me on Twitter and remind me, I mean, we're approaching 3:45 here of the show. Ariel, with Khamzat's weigh-in last Friday, reminded me of DC's infamous Towelgate moment. By the way, in talks, we're trying to get Khamzat on the show. Never met Khamzat. Never talked to Khamzat. In fact, I am blocked on Khamzat's Twitter, not his IG. Now, I think that other people did that. There's no smoke here. There's no beef here on this side of the table. In fact, I think I've been, touting him quite well. Now, we call it like we see it around these parts, but I remember saying last year that I thought in a year he'd be fighting for the belt. Of course, COVID took things, a little bit, down a different path, but we're back on that track, in my opinion. Anyway, it reminded me of DC's infamous Towelgate moment. Have you ever spoken to DC about this off the record? Because it seemed to be a big deal. Yeah, we spoke about it on the record, on the show. Go look it up. When will we see Tony back? Right now, nothing. I think it's interesting. I heard Dana say, oh, Nathan Diaz wants to fight. And I'm sure someone's going to ask me about this. Nathan Diaz wants to fight, and so maybe Khamzat could be that guy. Why can't it be Tony? Why can't it be Vicente Luque? I mean, you all know what's going on. We've talked about it. Last fight on his deal. It's the old pro wrestling thing. To me, it's not in the best spirit of booking these guys, right? You want to book these guys in the most fair and competitive fights out there. And I'm not saying that he's going to get steamrolled, but there's no market for this fight. There's no market for this fight. If the only reason why this fight is being made or brought up or being discussed is because it's the last fight on his deal, it's not in the spirit of matchmaking. You see what I'm saying? Like I said on Monday, I do believe on this program, If Nathan Diaz or his team went to the UFC and said, today, let us sign a 6-fight contract right now, right here, right now, they are not booking that fight. They are not. They're booking Luque. Did the Leon Edwards fight make it? No, it didn't make sense. But they tend to do what Nathan wants because Nathan is big business. But if he's got a foot out the territory, as they say back in the old Memphis wrestling days, they want him to do the JOB. Let's just call it like we see it. Ariel, what would be your all-time matchup? Any fighter across any sport, dead or alive? Jeez. All-time? I mean, GSP in his prime against Khabib in his prime is pretty damn good. DC again, DC, I'm sorry to talk about him. It brings up all these bad memories. But DC versus Fedor was one I wanted to see. Fyodor versus Brock. Fedor and Fyodor are the same person, by the way, but sometimes we like to switch it up. Fyodor versus Couture. I mean, we've been lucky. Anderson versus GSP. Trying to think of other ones. I mean, we've been lucky. We've seen a lot of the dream matchups. Of course, you could go with Royce Gracie versus Kamaru Usman, but those are some that come to mind. What do you think is next for Khamzat? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the way this stuff with Nathan goes. I say, if it was up to me, if I had the pencil, right? That's what they say in the old school wrestling world. If I had the pencil, I would do Khamzat versus Neil Magny. I feel like that's the logical next step. Magny's number 8. Magny says he could beat him. He's been calling him out. There's some heat there. Then you go 5. Then you go title fight. 2 more. That's what I would do. Speaking of wrestling, I want to give a shout out to John Moxley, Tony Khan yesterday, saying that he's going to take some time off to deal with some issues that he's been battling. And so I just wanted to wish John and his wife Renee all the best. John is the man. His new book is out, and I've been, I started to read it a little bit. He's an absolute legend. The former Dean Ambrose. I just wish him the best and thinking of him and pulling for him. He's an absolute legend. With this weekend being a stellar pay-per-view, my question is, in UFC history, what's the best pay-per-view stacked top to bottom that you remember? God, 200 was up there, but it got kind of decimated. On paper, it was tremendous with DC versus Jones and the return of Brock, Amanda Nunes, Miesha Tate. I mean, you had Cain Velasquez buried there. You had TJ Dillashaw. I mean, top to bottom on paper, there probably wasn't a better card, but there's been a lot. 100 was great. But yeah, 200 on paper. It didn't come to fruition, but on paper, that was the one. Hey, Ariel, if I send you Hapoel Jerusalem basketball merchandise, will you hang it on the wall? Abso-freaking-lutely. Shout out to Hapoel. Ariel, you are a puppet master. You called Khamzat and Nathan weeks ago as a joke. It wasn't a joke. I was serious. And look where we find ourselves. I guess my question is, are you ever tired of always being right? Thank you, Lewis. I get the feeling they're going to end up doing Rocky Leon Edwards dirty too. They're not. It's in writing. They're not going to do him dirty. Good job by his management. Bring back the Fighter Trivia game show. I would love to do that. That was a miss. We did that once for Fuel TV back in the day, and it was great. Rashad, Kenny, someone else. Brittany Palmer was like the assistant. It was a great time. Literally 10 years ago. My man Ariel, I miss seeing you at UFC events, brother. MSG is a huge one this weekend. Can you not attend the events anymore, or do you choose not to? The latter. No one's told me I can't attend the events. My jobs don't require it right now, and I'm just kind of in this flow. And if my employers are saying we don't need you there, or you could do this, you could do that, like, yay, man, I've been there. There's no other secret. There's no other story here. I know you guys want the dirt. I know you want the tea. It's just I'm doing work. I'm not sitting at home on the couch. Rest assured. And you know what I'm doing. And I'll be back. Listen, we're having a good time here. Thug Nose, Helwani, twice a week. We're doing stuff. We're doing big things. How do you feel about Anthony Chickenheart Smith lying? Wow, geez. Mr. Ariel Helwani, how do you feel about Anthony Chickenheart Smith lying about injury so he can fight Jan Blachowicz instead of Rakic? Wow. Nenad, it's very intense. And all of that after basically begging for the rematch. Hopefully Jan will... I mean, the guy talked about a freaking... What did he have? He had a staph infection. Hopefully Jan will cancel so that Smith can continue to fight 10th place fighters again. Oh my gosh. If I'm Rakic, I would never fight Smith again after this. Well, maybe they're going to do Jan versus Rakic now, is the latest. Your set is such a great mess of collectibles, toys, and memorabilia. Just wanted to know what toy or collectible young Ariel was asking his parents in the 80s and 90s for that he never had but still dreams about. Cheers to you and your young and bright soul. Well, thank you, Frank. That's very nice of you. My favorite toys as a kid were the LJN wrestling toys. And I used to get them. I don't know if anyone will remember this back in Montreal. There was a pharmacy called Cane's, and we would go there. There was also a place called Consumers that we would go and get them. We would get them in the packaging. They were these plastic ones, and they would just like stay like this. They wouldn't move, and I loved those. Was there one Trojan horse that I never got? Not really, but I did have a box of like 50 of them, and unfortunately, they gave them away, and I still, I still rib, as they say in the business, my mom about these, but those were my toys back in the day. I love those. Khamzat Chimaev has entered the rankings as the number 10 welterweight. Shout out to the MMA fighting rankings. Check them out. Sean Al-Shadi and Alex K. Lee do a great podcast about him. What do you think of this placement? Is it low? Let's see here. Welterweight. Usman. I put the champion number 1, but they don't. Wait. You know what? I went to the UFC one. Why am I going to the UFC one? I need to go to the MMA fighting one. For goodness sake. Okay, here's welterweight. Usman 1, I like it. Covington 2, Gilbert 3, Leon 4, like it. Thompson 5, like it. Vicente 6, like it. Yaroslav Amasov 7. I think they're rating him a little bit high, but fine. Chiesa 8. Masvidal tied for 8. Khamzat tied for... Oh, no, Khamzat is 10th. That's your top 10. Now you got Neil Magny. I think Neil's being a little disrespected here, guys, if I'm being honest. But he hasn't been very active. Ray Cooper 12. Michael Page 13. Bilal Muhammad 14. Douglas Lima 15. I mean, I could see it. I think you can make a case for Magny and these guys, but I could see it. I don't have a problem with it. And I also don't have a problem with... It's sort of like Kayla Harrison with the pound for pound. You could project a little bit. Even though they haven't fought the competition, you know they're good enough to beat the competition. And so I don't have a problem with it. Any idea how much money the UFC gives the guys they take care of, i.e. the guys who don't get a performance of the night bonus but come close? It changes. It's subjective. If this was Game of Thrones and you demanded a trial by combat, who would you choose to be your champion against Schaub? In other words, who's the best heavyweight who'd be willing to fight to defend your honor? Well, I mean, as of, a week ago, I'd say the man who used to be here. But unfortunately, things have changed. And so I don't know. Todd Duffy. Thoughts on the Leon Masvidal outcome? Leon wins. Title shot, baby. Agreed. Masvidal wins. Well, then it's Masvidal Covington if Colby loses. It's Masvidal Burns if Usman wins. It could also be Masvidal Covington, by the way. I mean, it doesn't really matter. If Colby wins and Masvidal wins, you got to do that fight next. If Colby loses and Masvidal loses, you got to do that fight next. And if Colby loses and Masvidal wins, I still think you got to do that fight next. Hello, Ariel. As you predicted a month ago, Dana now wants to make Nate Diaz fight Khamzat Chimaev, which nobody wants to see. If you were advising Diaz, what would you do in this situation? I would stand my ground. I would meet them face to face. I would talk it out, and I would do I'm not saying to give the guy a gimme fight, but let's give the guy a proper fight. Listen, if there's one guy in this sport at this juncture in the UFC that has the sweat equity to say what he wants to do, to at least be heard and be respected, and have the kind of fight befitting of a guy who's been in the organization for over a decade, who has been around, who has put the organization on the map at times, who has been involved in some of the biggest fights and the biggest feuds in the history of this sport. If there's one dude that has earned that respect, it's that guy, right? It's that guy who took a fight on 11 days' notice. And yes, it changed his life, but it also helped change the fortunes of the UFC. Let's not forget, they sold the company shortly thereafter. Now, of course, it was being talked about as in the works, but the company's profile was raised after that fight at UFC 196. If there's one guy that has the sweat equity to say, give me a fight that makes sense for me and my career at this juncture, coming off a loss, as we explore what is out there, not as we explore leaving, but just as that's what free agency is. Sometimes you test free agency, by the way, and you stay. This has happened. GC can tell you about Freddie Freeman's about to test free agency for the Atlanta Braves. He might stay, or he might go sign with his hometown Anaheim Angels. Who knows? Point is, you test it. You might like what's out there. You might not like what's out there. You could come back. The point of testing free agency is to see how much you are truly worth, to see what your market value is. It's not to stab your your former employers in the back. It's not to be a Benedict Arnold like that man. It's to actually go out and see what you're truly worth. Free market. I mean, it's essentially what I just did, right? So I'm speaking from experience. I'm not one of these guys who's talking out of turn. That's it. So that's what I think the Vicente Luque fight. I mean, look at the MMA fighting rankings. Vicente Luque is ranked 6th. For goodness gracious. That's not a gimme fight. This man is on a roll. So that's what I would push for. I love that fight. Luque's not booked. Ariel, what is your sense in how the negotiations go with a big fighter like Nathan Diaz? In your opinion, what type of money is the UFC willing to offer? I mean, it's all different. It's really all different. The one thing that I would say, I have talked to people who are in sports who represent other athletes. And the one thing that they say is frustrating about how the UFC does it is like it's very Wild West-ish and it's very emotional and personal. And in this world that we're living in with high dollars attached, I kind of feel like, it can't be so emotional. I feel like you have to go in there and talk people, like talk to them about business and be level-headed and not be, irrational. You have to be rational. And so we're just getting into the Nathan Diaz. It's just starting now, and it probably should have started a long time ago. It's just starting now, but we'll see how it all plays out. Nihao Bapa, role play. You're hosting a new show, Inside MMA. EJ Helwani, skinny white guys with some swag. Respect. Love EJ. My condolences to his family on the passing of their son. That's my favorite show. Inside the There's nothing better. Chuck, DC, liable to say or eat anything on air. Yes. Underdog, Raymunderdog. Put that on a t-shirt. Who's your Shaq? Who's your Kenny and why? Wow. Golly. Chael? Can we get Chael in the mix? I think Anthony Smith is like a good Kenny Smith type. Doesn't take himself too seriously, methodical, analytical. What do you think of that? What do you think of the chances of Khamzat being a champion and potentially a double champ? Possible, 170, 185. Ariel, is this the happiest you've seen GC since he joined the team? No, the happiest I saw GC was when he walked into here and he realized that his game night days are over, baby. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty. He said, I am free at last. Hey, Ariel, have you watched Heels? It's a new TV show. No, but I want to. And there's talks of Helwani that they want Helwani to cut a promo or two on that program. They need to talk to my agents about this, but there's been some chatter. Would you like to see it? I think it would be nice. All love from Israel. Chazak Baruch. What 4 MMA fighters would you take as a teammate in a men's basketball league? Oh, wow. Cyril Gane. Shout out to Ben Henderson. There he is right over there. Cyril Gane, Ben Henderson. DJ running the point. See, again, sad. I was going to say DC because he's got the round mound. He'd back guys up like Charles Barkley, but now I can't say DC. So instead of DC, who's a good basketball player? I don't know who's a good basketball player. A lot of them are not very good at all. Cyril Gane is really good. Benson, DJ. I'm not sure. I have to think about it. Oh, can we get a mysterious Frank face reveal as an early Christmas gift? What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, the answer's no.
Okay, there you go. Good afternoon, Ariel. In this 2-week stretch or even 3-week stretch of this past weekend's and upcoming UFC events, perhaps the best consecutive run of events the organization has ever put on. No, let's not get crazy. Come on. Since we're getting the band back together, any chance of getting Esther back ringside? Well, that's up to her. I know she's doing stuff for Showtime at the moment. I'm very happy, so you'd have to ask her that. I can't get enough of the Khamzat hype train, so in an attempt to get completely ahead of ourselves, do you think Izzy is an actually easier matchup than Usman? I mean, stylistically, but Izzy's wrestling has come a long way. Yeah, Usman versus Khamzat would be fascinating. What do you think about Khamzat fighting Sean Strickland in the next 6 months? My God, that would be scary, but fun. How did you get the scar on your head? Wow, thank you. I think it's something, from when I was a little kid. I don't even know the real story. I'm going to ask Mama Knows after this, and I'll get back to you on that. Hooping with Tim Raines in the City of Saints? No, I never did. I wish. Have you checked in with Tony Ferguson? I have reached out to him, and I haven't heard anything. But I think he's doing okay. I'm looking forward to Chandler Gaethje this weekend, but I'm confused who I should pick in my DK contest. Comparing the two fighters, in which area does each fighter have the biggest advantage? I mean, come on. Did you? Yeah, I mean, you put in this question before. GC gave you the breakdown, so I'm sure you enjoyed that. Hey, Ariel, really enjoyed Helwani in full effect on Instagram. Thank you. I think AJ Agazar might have peed his pants after you hit him with the 10-8. Absolutely. My question will be, who will be the first fighter back in studio? Ian freaking Gary. Are you surprised Frankie Edgar is the underdog heading into the fight with Vera? No, Marlon Vera is a G. He's looked good as of late. Okay, just a couple more. I'm a fan of Ian Gary, super excited about his UFC debut. However, I would have liked to see him stick around to defend his Cage Warriors belt once or twice more. Man, you got to capitalize. And the UFC signing guys, earlier these days, more events, more competition out there. I have no problem with it. Welcome back. And also, you're not fighting like what is considered UFC caliber fighters. It's a lot different. It's not what it was 10 years ago. And that's no knock. It's just the threshold is lower. Welcome back to the Legend New York Rick, a man of the people. Don't worry, we still got love for GC. The Bellator Burks pick is coming soon. Let's go. How many times a week are you recognized in public? I mean, it depends. Have you ever had another parent come up to you and talk MMA UFC? Yes. In fact, at my daughter's birthday party this weekend, someone asked me what I did for a living, and then I told them what I did for a living, and they're like, oh, my friend, he owns a martial arts studio in somewhere. Let me see if he knows you. And I said, okay, and he wrote his friend a text message, and he's like, oh, he knows who you are. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. What percentage of fighters, athletes would you say react negatively towards you when you objectively report, discuss news about them that doesn't paint them in a positive light? We're all positive here, baby. Except for this guy and that guy and that guy and people who are managed by people who are a little bit, they just, I don't know what's going on over there. But for the most part, it's all love. Shout out Helwani. Will you ever get Hasbullah on the show? No. Abdul, yes. Hasbullah, no. Question on GC and betting. Why does he make his picks that don't exist on DraftKings? No option for Demir last week to be via decision. What? How can you put picks out there that don't exist? GC, if you'd like to jump on the mic and answer for this, I don't know the answer to this question.
Yeah, what is he referring to? I have no clue.
Demir. He said Demir last week to win via decision. It came out like a day after. Then the guy misses weight anyway.
He said what now?
Who knows? Let's move on. Ariel, love having New York Rick back. He said, what now? What are your top 3 New York Rick moments? Oh my gosh. When he subbed for me on the show. When I met him for the first time and he didn't have an iPhone charger. True story. I met him for the first time. Someone asked him for an iPhone charger and he said, I don't have an iPhone. I don't know what an iPhone charger is. That would be number 2. And when he did the UFC Fit challenge and he lost like a gazillion pounds. Okay, this last person just wrote the longest message and it looks really good, but I just can't read it right now. I feel like I've represented here. There's still a bunch more. Okay, let me go to my man, Ian. Has Showtime reached out to you to be a part of the Paul Fury fight in Florida in December? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll just say that. I mean, I'm not one to put the cart before the horse, but stay tuned. I mean, you saw the performance, you saw the numbers, you saw the rub, you saw the draw. Let your imagination run wild. Last one. Oh, horrible last one. I just want to remind you of the Raps Knicks score from Monday, 113 to 104 for your Raptors. Next up, why turn your back on Canada's team for the Knicks? I didn't turn my back. I was a Knicks fan before the Raptors were even a thing. 1995, they came into existence. I was a fan of the Knicks since 1990. I ain't turning my back on the orange and blue, especially since we're about to win the championship in the next 5 or so years. And with that, we shall call it a day. Longest show we've done so far? Probably. When I first came back, we were like, 2 hours, we'll keep it. How do you feel about this, Frankie? Have you ever worked with a broadcaster who can go 4+ hours without a break and just continue to churn out hits after hits after hits? Tell us right now.
We were wondering about how you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, listen, I'm a freaking beast. They don't call me Thug Nose for nothing. They don't call me Heel Wani for nothing. And here is a message to any friend of mine out there, to any colleague, to any compatriot, to any coworker, anyone. You will never find a more loyal, a more loving, a more supportive friend, colleague, compatriot, coworker than I. However, if you turn your back on me, if you stab me in the back, if you kick me, if you shun me, if you refuse my hugs, you will end up like this sad sack individual once known as my friend named Daniel Cormier, who I supported through thick and thin, who I fought battles on his behalf on the internet, asked people to support it. I have always supported this man. No more.